Hey guys, welcome to today's video on the energetics of food. So if you've been noticing that despite trying to eat all the right foods, there's something quite off with how your body is assimilating and digesting all the foods that you eat, then you're going to love this video. So I'm going to be sharing today some of the principles around eating and the energetics of food that is not commonly discussed, that's really going to help you. And if you're new to my channel, hello, my name is Elika. I'm an energy optimization coach and a trusted advisor for purpose-driven leaders who want to have way more energy because they know they're here to create a big impact in the world and they need their energy to be able to do so. So if you've not already and you like the style of that, then subscribe so that you can hear about all the lifestyle habits and the hacks that I share around living life through managing your energy well. So I have wrote so much that I want to talk about today on this topic. So I don't think it will be a very, very long video, but I don't want to miss a thing because there were so many little nuances through the week that I was like jotting down that I wanted to talk about in today for examples to share with you. So let's firstly just start with like the feminine and the masculine, because that will help us to understand the energetics and how we can apply that to food. So the feminine tends to be where we experience energy in more free-flowing. Think about nature, think about like just how like when you see the leaves moving or the trees just blowing in the wind, like this is the feminine energy. It's the free-flowing, it's life without restriction and more expansion. Where the masculine, nothing is better or worse. The masculine is more about structure, think systems, think process, think rigidity, think the buildings that are square as opposed to nature, which is really not square at all, right? So think about structure. And then when you apply those from an energetics point of view, then you can start to really think about how this is going to be something that you might not be considering when you think about the energetics of food, but that could really allow you to consider what you need more or less of. And I can tell you already what you need more of. Okay, so I want to go into food as energy. So there are different ways to look at this. One way is like thinking about like the Chinese principles of yin and yang, which is also like feminine and masculine, right? Also light and dark. So it's this idea that there are two polar opposites, and one of those is like food that is heaty, food that is warm, hot food, and food that is cooling or food that is cold, right? So when you think about that, like for example, most people today, when they think about healthy, they eat cold food, they eat salads, right? Not only is it cold, think about the crisp iceberg lettuce. I mean, the name says it all, iceberg. Oh my God. For years, English people ate that salad like, you know, they couldn't have health without it. And literally, the main leaf, iceberg, doesn't really feel nourishing for the soul, does it really? We are very interesting mammals. So hot and cold. So this is one element of the energetics of food. Does the food warm your body in that way that only kind of heat feels like it can do? Or does the food cool your body? Again, we don't need to label good or bad, because I know, you know, living in Dubai now where it's 40, 45 degrees, I know the cravings for my acai bowls have gone through the roof as my body adjusts to this new heat that's been created outside and therefore in my body, and then the cooling sensation that it needs, right? We all know about ice creams in the summer and the cravings that go up, right? So the warmth of the food or the cooling nature of the food may be something that's a dynamics that your body needs and that needs balancing out. In Ayurveda, we talk about the different type of doshas. So we have people that are vata and pitta and kapha. And so these people that are more vata in nature and pitta in nature, they have more of the element that the kapha doesn't have. So it's more of that fiery type of nature, that air, that expansiveness nature, where the kapha is more cooling, more calm, more steady. And so again, even in all of the different ancient wisdoms that we study, they always seem to have, whether it be Chinese medicine or Ayurveda, they always have these principles of like heaty, cooling, warm, cold, right? So we can apply that. The other one I want to talk about is live food and versus processed food. So live food, when I think about live food, I think about like something that's really good, which is sprouted seeds. Sometimes when you go in the supermarket, you'll see it like alfalfa sprouts or broccoli sprouts or sunflower sprouts. If you think about the germination of the seed, where the seed cracks open and you see the shoot starting to come out, when you get that, that's like literally, think about it in nature, where the seed like forces its like way open and then a shoot pops its way out of the soil and stretches as much as it can to reach for the sun, which is where it's going to get one of its sources of nutrients. And so that liveness, think about the energy that it takes to try and push your way out of the casing of the seed, push your way through the soil to get your exposure to the sun. That is a lot of live, lot of spring energy, right? A lot of, think of that when you think about spring, and I think about lambs in season, like bouncing, you know, in the grass, that kind of really bouncy energy. So this is like the beginning stage of food, where it has a lot of energetic frequency and it's going to absorb all of the nutrient from the sun in the same way humans should be doing every day, and absorb all of that energy. I'm trying to keep this really simple. I could go very complex with this, but I just know it'll go over your head. Like if I tell you about how I was taught this, like no, very different. So then you go all the way from that through to the maturity of it. Think about when you buy vegetables and you see them in the fridge and you're like, need to use the broccoli today, need to use that spinach today, and you see the limpness, you see how it's starting to lose its vibrancy, its life force, its energy, all the way through to what we see on the supermarket shelves. The cans, the tinned, the boxes of food. This is food that doesn't have that live energy in it anymore. Doesn't have that frequency that is vibrant. This is dead food or processed food. And we can see that scale, right? From the alfalfa sprouts to the box of cookies that has a shelf life of 3 years. You know what I mean? It's a real difference in the energetics that they can give you, because there's a difference in the energetics that they hold, right? So then that's where we go from like live food to processed food. Then I want you to also think about just raw food and cooked food. So raw food, when I did my plant-based chef certification, we focused on only raw food. So that meant I was only eating, in the whole time I was qualifying for that, food that was below 46 degrees in temperature, like as in cooked below 46 degrees. So that means as a raw food chef, their main kitchen equipment to cook is a dehydrator, where you can really control the heating at very, very low temperatures. Whereas if you think about the ovens, your oven temperature probably starts at 50, right? And we are going like maximum 46 in raw food, because that's the point at which the live enzymes in food starts to be destroyed by heat. And that's what we see in processed food. Processed foods versus foods that are raw have gone through, I mean, depending on the scale of how processed they are, but they've gone through process using heat, which destroys the live enzymes. And then, what all the other processes that can happen, they can get stripped of their live nutrients. They can have things added into it like preservatives to increase shelf life. So all of those things are on that real scale. But if we just go from raw food to cooked food, then what's happening is the enzymes, the live activity in the food, the energetics of the food, with heat, obviously they start to get destroyed. And that's why you have to think about things like honey, not cooking with your really good honey. I mean, all honey that you should be eating if you want the nutrients is raw honey. So you should be looking for raw on the packet. And if it's raw honey, it has all those live enzymes, all those medicinal properties in it. And so when you put that raw honey into your desserts that you cook, you bake your cake with it, you just destroy all those medicinal properties. That's why when you have things like raw cacao instead of cocoa, so the difference between raw cacao and cocoa is raw cacao is not heated with, it's not being processed with heat. So therefore, the live enzymes in it are still active, whereas cocoa has been processed with heat. So if I'm making chocolate, like chocolate bars or chocolate coated things, I'm not going to heat raw cacao powder. I might mix it with some coconut oil to make a paste and then coat. Whereas with cocoa, I'm willing to, bain-marie style is a way of controlling it, where you heat the chocolate over the water, heated water. But with cocoa, I'm willing to put that into desserts that I'm making that I'm going to put in the oven, for example, where the heat is going to destroy the live nutrients. So we can see that sometimes, depending on our cooking style, we might want the raw ingredients. Sometimes it might not be worth it to use the raw, right? And so we use the cooked, the heated version. So these different foods offer us different energetics. So of course, when it's raw, it still holds all of the live nutrients inside it, so it's more nutrient dense. But again, for some people, it might not suit your constitution to be eating raw foods. It might mean that because of your digestion or stress in your life, that you actually need that support of cooked or warmed foods to be able to start that breaking down of the cellular structure and also the enzyme activity, so that you can, absorb more of those nutrients. So those nutrients are more what we say bioavailable to you. So this is some of the energetics just of food, right? Hot, cold, warm, cooling, like raw, cooked, live, processed, just before we even start to think about how it's really going to impact like what decisions we make about how we eat. So let's talk about now the experience of the feminine energy versus the masculine energetics in food. So this morning when I was eating my breakfast, I have a routine now where I eat breakfast on the balcony, and I love it because I'm having my breakfast slightly earlier. I'm just changing up my food routine, interestingly, now for myself. Being in Dubai, I'm realizing that I need different things and my body's asking for different things, and it's a whole experiment again. And I've done this experiment many times in my life to know that I just don't need to get in my head about it. I just need to feel and experience and intuit what my body needs. And one of those is my body's been asking me to have breakfast a lot earlier. So typically I used to have breakfast around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and even longer, because I could fast a lot longer. And I say fast, not just like miss my meals. But now my body's really asking me to really honor the morning breaking of my fast a lot earlier. And so I'm shifting as I do that. And in the morning, I've been eating my breakfast on the balcony. And it's so beautiful because the temperatures soar here at this time of year to like 40 degrees, 45 degrees by like 12 o'clock. And so I'm eating breakfast around 9 o'clock. And so sitting on the balcony where it's still so warm, but then you've got the sun rays, the early morning sun on you, and you just sit outside, and I'm just sitting outside eating my breakfast in just the silence of like nature, and just being very present with my food. And it's such a beautiful experience of like just feeling the warmth of the sun and the presence of myself and the food. And this to me is this feminine energetics of consuming food. Like, when I think about my future life, I think about myself sitting on the porch with my loved one, watching the sunset, just again, seeing nature. Like, think about that dynamic of how that makes you feel. Now, compare that to some things that I do all the time. I have a supermarket nearby that does high quality foods on a deli bar. And sometimes when I'm rushing in between meetings, I go, okay, I know I can get some, like, I really like their cooked broccolis and their roasted beetroot and their roasted chicken. So sometimes I go there and they have a seating area and I'll sit inside and eat it. Now, I'll be sitting in silence and I'll try to avoid being on my phone or anything like that. But if you can imagine this setting, it's like a supermarket with a seating area. People are coming in and out hustle, and people that kind of go in there and eat, they tend to be rushing. And so there is a slight dynamic that it feels a bit cold. Also, there's something about when I eat alone at home compared to when I eat alone in that type of setting that feels a bit distant. It's the same as when I think about, like, those times where you haven't eaten and you're trying to race between meetings or race between activities and hobbies, and you grab food on the go and you eat it as you're moving. I was the queen of this in running the restaurant. I used to always be eating standing up. And that dynamic of the food, that kind of energetics of the food, is really not allowing your body to really receive the nourishment. And so you could be eating all the right foods, but it may be that the setting and the way that you eat it, which, you know, when I told you about the first thing in the supermarket, I'm very present still when I eat my food, but I can just tell the environment, it feels very different to when I'm having my breakfast on the balcony. And yet, this is something that we don't necessarily think about in terms of creating the right environment for our body to receive the nutrients and the nourishment from the foods. So it could be that you have digestive issues still by eating all the right foods, but in the wrong environment. And in human design, we look into, I tend to look into with my clients, how they digest, like based on their human design. And digestion is not just about food, it's how they digest information. And so for me, I have the digestion of like low sounds, which means that I shouldn't be eating with lots of noise in the background. And I used to be the person that would always have the podcast in the background. Always, you know, like, and when I was younger, my mom had the TV on in the background all the time. So it was always natural to me to have noise going on in the background. And yet, right, especially coming to Dubai, I've really put a principle on, unless I'm eating with people, to eat in silence. And I really can tell the difference. I really can tell the difference. Yeah. So knowing your unique way of digesting information, digesting nutrients is really important to explore. And if you want to explore human design readings, I'll have a link below and you can explore human design readings with me. And another thing that we look at in human design is the best environments for you. So my best environments are valleys. So it's funny, like when I was thinking about being on the balcony, that feels like a valley. I can just look down at the world below, and that's the only stimulation that I need. And that's enough, and it feels so grounding for the body, because that's not grounding, my feet are not in the soil. But that, for me, is one of my best environments. And so human design is brilliant for, again, showing that the environment that, like, you know, a lot of my clients I've noticed always seem to have, like, kitchens or, like, basically hubs or creative spaces where people come together. So thinking about, like, you know, if you're somebody maybe that's eating alone and you really crave to eat with others, you know, maybe you come from a culture like me, Caribbeans, Italians, Latinos, where, and you could arguably say this about all cultures, I understand, but there are some cultures that are so much more about the family coming together to eat in a way that is tribal, that they've maintained for years, like for thousands of years. Whereas, for example, in England, I can see that in England, people like families to come together for sure, but the culture of eating at the desk was way more common than what I saw in Asia and what I think I would see in France. So different cultures have also allowed themselves to adopt different practices that might not necessarily suit your own personal way of eating. So this could be something that's affecting your environment in which the food is going into, right? Your body is also the container for the food to go into. So if the container is not regulated, your nervous system is not calm and rest and relax, receiving mode, then you're going to experience a disturbance with the food. So I like to look at the energetics of how you consume. And I feel that the receiving mode is the feminine. So you want to make sure that you're in the feminine energetics when you're eating food to really allow your body to really absorb. So there are some other feminine energetics that I want to talk about as well, which are how a woman's body works. A woman's body does not work to a 24-hour biological clock like men's do, circadian rhythm. We work to Infradian rhythm, a 28-day clock. We follow the moon cycle. And so our hormones are moving with that cycle. Whether we're premenopausal, menopausal, postmenopause, we still follow a moon cycle. And so eating the foods that our body needs for the energetics of that phase within the 28-day cycle is also something important. And I do have a video on Infradian rhythm and on women eating for energy in the playlist, so definitely look up that if that's new to you. But knowing, like, that, for example, in spring, you want those broccoli sprouts, you want those shoots You want those lighter or cold pressed salads. In summer, again, you do really well with that and more some of the cooling foods. But in autumn, you know, in that phase, the luteal phase, where your hormones are now crashing, you really want to make sure you're getting those grounding foods, those warming foods, those root vegetables that really warm your body, like carrots or so roasting carrots or pumpkins. Again, cooking style comes in now, right? Now I might want to roast the carrots to give me that warmth and that sweetness, you know? So the dynamics of the season. And then we've got winter. And winter, you think about the stews and the hot pots and the soups and the easy to digest liquid style foods that allow your body to be flooded with the nutrients. Yeah. So again, when I think about the cooking style, though the last 2 seasons are way more on the warm foods, right? Whereas if I'm eating a salad every day, because that's my ritual, because that's what I'm going to do to eat to stay healthy, I'm not really honoring the energetics of my body and the energetics of food. And so they're not in play with each other. So I think, you know, I want to pull that together by saying that what today's world is teaching us is to have structure, to have routine, to be linear about everything. And what I would say is about the energetics of food is you need structure to some extent. So you do need the masculine container. The masculine container could be, where do you buy your food from? How regularly do you order your food to make sure that you don't get caught hungry and then have to get takeout or, you know, eat just like processed rubbish because it's convenience food, right? So these are the masculine principles that allow you to eat well, right? That also, it might be the containers that you put it in, right? Like making sure, for example, that you store in glass containers versus plastic containers, and the discipline around that, the storage style, where you store your food so that your food is fresh, how you store it. So these are all masculine elements that help you to provide structure around the way that you eat. Time of day is, of course, definitely a big one, right? Not eating really late, 1 hour before you go to sleep, 2 hours before you go to sleep, which is going to affect your body's ability to digest food and sleep at the same time, right? Your body's or energy is going to be used to digest the food instead of getting deep restorative sleep. So these are really good ways to provide structure, systems, the masculine container around the energetics of food for you. Whereas the feminine is really about thinking about, okay, what energetics does this food give me and what do I need right now? So for example, for a woman, if I'm in winter, if I'm menstruating, do I really need to be eating raw salads right now, right? Or could I have just a beautiful, warm, nourishing soup and make sure that, you know, I'm still getting my protein as well, you know, like a beautiful dal, you know, with some added tofu inside it. That could be a real nourishing meal for me. You know, am I drinking ice cold drinks when I wake up in the morning instead of warm water and lemon, which would just really stimulate that digestive system, allow the digestion to start opening up before I consume food, right? So there is a place for both the feminine and the masculine in the energetics of food. And when you start looking at your food from these principles, that's going to unveil a deeper layer for you that's going to really help you if you're having any issues in digesting your food or your relationship with food. This is going to help you to explore a deeper principle of how you can use your energy way more efficiently. And so I hope you've loved that video as much as I've enjoyed sharing with you. And I would love to hear your comments of your insights from the video. So please leave me your comments below. I'd love to just understand what your takeaways are from that, and anything that you're doing specifically that's working well for you, either in the feminine or the masculine energetics of food. I would also love to hear. And I always say that the best place to really just understand about this lifestyle of really using energy as your most valuable currency is by subscribing to my newsletter. And the link you'll see in the comments below. My newsletter is really where I share my audit, how I audit every area of my life by energy, and also examples of things that I'm doing with clients and the lifestyle creation that I'm doing. So really show you how like these habits and these hacks are brought into a lifestyle. Because energetics of food, if you follow my energy reset recipe, is just one of the 4 pillars that I look at to really look at creating harmony personally and professionally in your life through managing your energy and keeping that in overflow. So I have really enjoyed that, and I hope you do. I look forward to seeing your comments, and please do subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.